More Than Rich podcast. Today we are here with Sultan Semlali, a leader in value-based selling, a global strategist, and the founder of valuecoach.com. Sultan has spent over 20 years driving transformation at companies like Salesforce, Adobe, EMC, and Oracle, and now leads the global value consulting team at Sitecore. But Sultan's story isn't just about corporate success. It's about redefining what it means to create value, both in business and in life. We'll explore his journey, the psychology behind value, and how businesses and individuals can focus on true impact rather than surface level success. Let's get ready for an insightful conversation and challenge perspectives. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. Happy to be here.
One of the first things I usually like to do is get into my guests' upbringing and background. So if you can go a little bit into your early childhood and then kind of figure out how we came to what does value mean to you, not just in business and life.
Well, I was born and raised in Belgium. My parents are both immigrants from Morocco, but they came in the 60s. And they were both business owners. They both my mom had a shop, grocery shop, and my dad was working as a driver for the embassy of the United Emirates.
Wow.
And at the same time, he was music producer, selling Arabic music on the market. So I spent my youth between
kind of
going
music?
to Arabic music, so Rai, Shabi, different. It's pretty good.
And what was it over?
I've seen you did some music as well. I think.
What was it in America? Like, was he doing well here with that music?
No, Moroccan, from Morocco.
Got you.
Yeah, Moroccan music. Yeah, so it's so he was finding artists in Morocco or in Algeria mostly, and bringing them across to Brussels. And then I remember attending a couple of those recording sessions. And then when we had the master tape, we needed to make copies of it. And at home, we had this machine you could use to make copies of music. So we had the master and then 4 tapes. And they were just running around. And then after 20 minutes, you need to turn around the tapes. Yeah,
Wow.
It was funny. So yeah, making some bootleg music, I guess.
But I mean, that's got to have like a cool little influence on you from an early age. Like whether that's like the illegal bootlegging aspect or even just the technology, right? Learning hands-on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a hands-on experience dealing with customers in the shop, helping them, making those copies of music, plugging stuff. So I've always been attracted to technology, electricity, and all those kind of things. So plugging TV.
Were you like a tinkerer?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's and breaking stuff and trying to fix them. I was pretty good at breaking, not good at fixing. Still not. So
that's funny.
That's but yeah, I think
that sounds like some character building early in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did your mom influence you?
My mom was an ace, a hardworking, fierce mom. She still is. But she was working like crazy. So she was managing the shop. So 6 days a week it was open at 8 a.m., closing at 8 p.m. We're helping in the shop. And from a young age, so I think I was 8, and I was already alone in the store helping customers when she was not there. So both my parents were of mindset that if there is work to be done, you better do it. You better help. Always ask for, can I help? And look at, just don't sit there and do nothing. Just see if you can help.
So how did that shape come in full circle to that first question? How does value get defined, and what does it mean to you, not just in business, but in life?
I think value is a very broad concept being used by everyone. And I think it's purely what you perceive as valuable on the other side. So what is important for the person in front of you? And it can be many things in many aspects. I think when I met my now wife, I told her that I'm looking for a partner that provides added value in my life. She was shocked. But what I mean by that is that when you have your partner in life, that person needs to bring you something to make sure that you guys, she brings you or he brings you something, and you bring the other person something as well to make them better, to improve their life. Otherwise, you just wait, and at the end of the day, the relationship dies. So I think to make a strong relationship, you need to provide value to each other and help them being, can be in business a lot of monetary, but I think it's also that sense of belonging, and that person makes me a better person, I would say. And I think that's where value lies.
How much of it is like actual genuine interest as opposed to wanting to learn and help?
I think if you're not believing into the fact that you need to provide value to other people and to make them better, people feel it. So I think we have a sixth sense to know that. If I'm like, hey, how can I help? By the way, do you want to buy a credit card?
That's interesting though, because I mean, you're just kind of talking in the sales aspect, but when we're kind of crossing industries here, entertainment gets real tricky real fast, you know?
Yeah. And it's very hard entertainment because it's about art, it's about passion, it's about things that the
Ooh,
artists love to do.
that's a good point, dude. And you
Yeah.
know what's funny is you just said art and passion, and like those are the two things missing the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
It's pretty good. How's your definition of success evolved throughout your career?
Oh, I think it's remained pretty much the same. Success is about feeling good about what you do and having the means to be comfortable. And then comfortable is very fluffy, I guess, but is that you don't feel the stress of, can I afford to pay the bills? Can I afford to do this? And I think if you at that stage, then you can be successful, and that informs the decisions you make. And I
It's
think that
interesting.
so if you want to buy Ferraris and have a large house, well, it's going to cost you a lot, and then you'll put yourself in a tight situations. How do you get out of there? So that's and then you won't feel comfortable, and so you will feel miserable, and so you're not successful. So it's about balancing and try to find ways to feel comfortable with your life, with what you have, and maybe have more, and then see how you can balance.
You make me think, if passion is success, a lot of us are kind of living our dreams the way we want, like just kind of ungratefully throughout the day, you know? If
Yeah.
that's what it is, like if we're actually doing what we want, that would be passion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we are. I think we only die once, so uh,
Wow. Have not heard that backwards phrase. Can a person truly align personal purpose with professional ambition, or is compromise inevitable?
good one. I I hope it's possible, um, but that's probably the goal of the battle, I would say. So trying to get there. Um, but yeah, follow your passion and live happy might not always work. So I don't know if your passion is to sing on the streets, but you have family that you need to feed. Um, it might not work. So we always need to find, to balance the needs that we have and the passion that we have. And I think that's the eternal struggle that we have as humans.
You just made me wonder if maybe some of the people in history that we revere, like the historic people that we look up to, if maybe they didn't even consider themselves success. Like we got statues of people, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't even consider themselves like that great or didn't think highly at all. So it's just kind of interesting that you don't really know your impact or legacy sometimes till after the fact.
Yeah. How do you see success yourself?
I definitely think purpose, but it feels like a cliche to say that. Like, because I guess I don't feel like it because you don't repeat that mantra, you're not saying I'm successful. It's not like you're walking around with that kind of attitude, but to be able to chase and to be able to know what your goal is, I think that's the deeper part of purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of people are wanderlessly aiming, I feel.
Yeah. Try to understand what your goal is. I think we are very often aimless, and pretty much with everything, if you don't know the question, you cannot find the answer. So,
And
yeah.
the other thing is I have so many ideas. Like I create ideas all the time. Like I'm not exaggerating when I say like I create and invent something new all the time. And I believe in them all, maybe not equally, but it's hard not to stretch myself thin sometimes because I'm like, I know everything can work at some point if it gets to the right whatever, I'm just optimistic in that aspect. But at the same time, I hear the mantra all the time, like, dude, pick one thing. You never pick one thing, but I believe in all of my ideas.
Yeah. And I've seen you do quite a lot. So that's very impressive. Your music and the interviews and your writings as well. It's very impressive. You touch a lot of things. And maybe we get back to that level of the alignment periods or even the Greeks, where they were doing a lot of stuff. And we are right now in a world where they tell you, well, focus on your core competency, focus on your one thing, and this is what you're going to do, and only bake the burgers. Don't take care of the bread, don't take care of the sauce. Yeah. Are we right to do that? Or maybe your art or your core competency is the ability to do multiple things at once. And if that brings you in your zone of happiness, well, maybe that's your purpose. And not necessarily to make millions with one idea that you push till the end.
I also realize though that like the main stuff I super love, I distract myself with all these side projects,
Okay.
So I'm aware of it,
Yeah.
But that is a super good point when you talk about the Greeks, because they were obsessed with like leaving something behind, like their life's work. Like that's why their art was so good, if you think about it, why they were obsessed.
Yeah. No,
Like,
that's true.
how else do you describe that kind of determination? Obsession, right? To
Yeah,
like
I think so.
make something look so perfect.
Yeah. And going back and forth and doing it over and over again, crafting your art. Yeah. And right now I think it's pretty tough right now because it's very easy to produce stuff now. It's very easy to make art.
You can 3D print that statue now.
Exactly. You can print whatever, you can generate whatever. I played with AI music and I was impressed by the quality. It was pretty good. I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm listening on the radio. So
it's so good that if you didn't know any better,
you would say, oh, that's just a crappy singer, but that's radio worth. So
exactly. But I love that you said that because you can't fake that authenticity. Like you can, it's going to be like, people are going to be incentivized to be weirder on the microphone, to be a little more original and make sounds because AI is not going to do that,
Yeah. Honest. That's a good point.
It's going to be too easy to replicate everything.
Yeah. So you'll be a farting rapper or whatever. Because then people will know, well, it was not AI generated.
Coming back a little bit to the 3D aspect, part of me wonders if like, not to go too off on a tangent, if like older civilizations were able to like 3D print on a larger scale, if maybe like I somehow have this like vision of impressions of like all they had to do was like impress something and it was there like instantly. Like I think we have this illusion of like mining and chiseling and like deep work when I don't think it was that complicated. It's too precise in my opinion.
We don't know how much time it took them.
That's true.
So it might be that it's just their craft that it took them. I don't know how much time it took for the pyramids and
like
so on.
Their life's work or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, right now we are able to build the Burj Khalifa in Dubai in 5 years. And And people in Dubai will say, "Oh, it took so long." In Brussels, we have this big Justice Palace. It's a beautiful building. Really recommend if you're ever in Brussels to visit it. I think they've been rebuilding it or refurbishing it and renewing it for the last 20 or 30 years. They're still not ready. So, and it becomes beautiful, but it takes a lot of time because it's an old building. And for us, it's a long time. I'm like, oh my God, 20 years, guys, come on. The Burj Khalifa was done in 5 years, but maybe the pyramids took 200 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, like generations or something.
Yeah, so it takes a generation, and we don't have that. That's funny, actually, because even though we live longer, we live to 80, maybe those people lived until their 40s.
Yeah.
We don't have the patience to wait 10 years or 20 years.
It's a good point, too. Like, could be a conspiracy of living longer than us, like now, Who knows? It's a good point, though.
Sure.
But have you ever struggled with ethical dilemmas in leadership, and how did you navigate them? His common one would probably be money or something, right? Most common.
Yeah, I was fortunate not to, I think. I was fortunate not to come into those situations. I've been lucky to have worked in mostly large corporate organizations where ethics, even though we think that those companies are not ethics at all, they do, and because they're afraid of lawsuits and everything. So this is the first thing you do when you join such a corporate, is that you will get through a lot of training on legal, bribery, all those things, how to deal with stuff. And if you feel something, you always need to speak up and discuss. So I think I was fortunate not to come into those situations, or to avoid them.
So, okay. I mean, you don't have to be exact on a number here, but I have a preface to this question. So,
okay.
In terms of corporations that you've worked with, would you say you've managed overseen like hundreds of millions of dollars in your life? Like, known where it goes and seen money like that?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So my question is, if you go back in time, like we're talking early America days, and we think of like how it was founded, corporations earlier around that time period, generating hundreds of millions of dollars around then. Sometimes I think about this and I'm like, doesn't it feel like these companies that are that big operate as countries if they've had that kind of wealth for hundreds of years? Can you imagine that it's not just a company? I think that's kind of a guise, but I feel like you really operate as your own country.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bill Gates was attending the Davos summit already when he was CEO of Microsoft, and it was back in the 90s. So I remember when I was a kid, he came to Belgium, and they blocked streets for him. He was seen as this, like president. And I think those global leaders of such global organization, I mean, they're head of large countries. That's why probably they invited to Congress to defend whatever wrong they did, and which is good, by the way.
Would you argue they almost have more power than a president in a country because they can operate in multiple countries,
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the impact that an Elon or Zuckerberg have with their social media, or Jeff Bezos, they don't have really boundaries. They're present in all countries, and they need to do well for the people, but at the same time, we did not vote for them. So, yeah, the only way we can vote for them is with our dollars. But
do you have a critique on capitalism here?
Not necessarily. I think capitalism is a good thing. I think we need to find
is this a regulation thing?
Yeah, more a regulation thing. I think we need to find ways to balance the power of corporations and the power of people. Make sure that if you want to end sickness or we want to end poverty, it should not be the head of a corporation that would decide that. I think it would be great if we could come together and say, well, let's end malaria, let's end this sickness, let's work on solving those issues, and giving government, which are the most imperfect organization, but they're created by the people, voted by the people. I think we should be able to decide what we want the money to go to and not stay on someone's $300 billion bank account somewhere. I don't know. It doesn't feel equal to me that you have 1 billion times more wealth than me. I don't know. That's probably we always had that in history, but I think right now it looks like it's accelerated and it's visible.
Do you
Probably it's because
feel
it's visible.
do you feel sometimes it's one of those things where things have to get so bad and exacerbated that it kind of leaves these holes wide open to where it's so extreme that something has to be done, that things literally have to get so bad for intervention? Because
I hope
the
not.
the only reason I say that is because the opposite is really just monopoly, you know?
Yeah.
Like if no one raises awareness to anything, I just see everything getting worse over time, especially with AI, especially.
Yeah. That's true. And it's Varoufakis, the previous economy minister of Greece, when Greece went bankrupt back in, I think, 2008.
Oh yeah.
He recently wrote a book about that, discussing AI and how we are getting back to the Middle Ages. So his theories that, and I'm butchering it a bit, it needs to be checked, but check it out. But his idea is that we are back to the medieval ages where we are working to improve the AI in what we do every day by using ChatGPT or Facebook or whatever algorithm. Everything is algorithm nowadays. We're improving them while they kind of help us, but at the end of the day, the only person that gets rich is the owner of the algorithm. So OpenAI becomes more and more powerful, and all the other ones as well. So I think he was making a good point that we'll end up being poorer than richer at the end of the day, because we are actually helping those algorithms have more and more power and more control, and we become useless. It's kind of a doom scenario. I don't know if it's so bad, but
On the other hand, though, if you could imagine like everyone's empowered with AI and they're just building rockets at home every time they get mad, they're just inventing something else, you know? Can you imagine that world where everybody is empowered and it's kind of hard to regulate in some aspect because somebody might be doing some crazy genetic breeding with crossing things they shouldn't.
Right.
Somebody's over here making a doomsday weapon, you know, like I don't know. I'm trying to imagine what policing is going to be like, because the level of threats seems like in the future, it's going to get like things they've never seen, you know?
Yeah. And I think it brings us back to education. So I think you can police up to a certain point, but we need to, I think, educate people on what is good, what is bad, what is critical thinking.
Wow.
That might be
interesting. That's interesting to think like there's a lot that people don't understand about AI that they need to be trained to use it, you know?
Yeah.
That's like you bought a product and you need the manual before I open the box, you know?
Yeah. That's
Very
what we used to do. That's what we used to do. If you speak to older people, they will tell you that when they bought a car, they were first reading the manual of the car. Right now, we get a car, we just step in and just drive. I think it's a generation thing. But I remember I met this guy and was like, so you just go in the car, you don't read the manuals before driving it? But that's a car. I know, but you always need to know. And he was reading every single page of that book. So
that's a good point. I bet majority of people now don't even know that book's in their glove compartment.
Yeah.
That is funny. We have become so detached.
Yeah, and we get to the point of what is a book? So,
But no, we've evolved. I'm sorry, we've evolved. What role does legacy play in how you approach your work and life decisions?
I think more and more, the legacy tends to become more important. I remember that I was seeing ads back in 2012, I think, in Singapore, about was some ads for financial stuff talking about legacy, and I'm like, come on, give me a break. 12 years later, I'm like, yeah, legacy is important. So I think as you get older, and if you have kids, or I don't know, for me, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm seeing my kids, and I'm like, oh yeah, actually, what you leave behind becomes important.
I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like I do so much good without resources that, like, even once I finally get all that, it's only going to exacerbate all the good I'm going to do. So
Yeah.
it's super important to be able to manage without having anything. I think being resourceful is a super valuable skill.
Yeah. And my dad used to say that it was a mindset that you give and you forget. Give and forget.
Hell yeah. More like give without expectations is what you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, someone is, oh yeah, can you borrow me $10? And in your heart, yeah, he's never going to pay me back.
Yeah.
And if you can miss it, like, okay.
I've learned that the hard way, actually, where it's like, where I've done so much for someone over time, and then the one time that they've done something for me, they remind me of it, and I'm like completely like, thought we were just like doing stuff because we were friends for, like, we've been doing this for months. This is the first time I've ever, like, I'm not going to remind you, but
that's,
but that what you're saying was the lesson I learned. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't get mad if I just gave without an expectation. I shouldn't even care.
Yeah. So my dad used to say that some people you give them and they get their hands like this, and then you give them. Then they said, but you didn't give me anything. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
do you think the pursuit of wealth and the pursuit of value are mutually exclusive?
Ideally, they could be combined. There's nothing wrong in wealth. And I think if you provide value, and I think maybe the phrasing would be pursuit of wealth by providing value is probably the recipe to success.
Wow. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Absolutely. That's funny. Who or what had the biggest influence on your career philosophy? You got any books that come to mind?
Yeah, I have books. I think probably a couple of managers you work with that become mentors. So I have Bridget, I have Stan, I have Chris, to name a few, that all bring their own perspectives. A couple of books. I think one of the book I was advised to by one of my best friends was The 7 Habits from Stephen Covey. And it was, I felt like a prophet after I read it. I was like, oh my God, I found the truth. Because it provides a great framework, and it touches many areas and it gives you those frameworks that you can back to, like the wow. So the wow is the walk on water, where you need to find your wow, what is the one thing that you do, and when you do it, you feel like you're walking on water. And that's your zone of greatness.
Ooh.
And that's the zone that you need to try to be in. And if you look at your entire week, how many times do you spend into that wow? And how can you maximize the time you spend there? Because
I haven't had that feeling in forever, but you actually made me think the last time I was really in that zone was like bug bounty hunting. I'm not even kidding. Yeah, that's like, but I don't really do that often. But that's like when I'm on a hunt and I'm focused or something. That's kind of interesting. Not even music. Music doesn't even make me feel like that.
That is funny.
That's crazy. Like I just get lost in time sometimes.
Yeah. And,
Wow.
and that's something we need to, that's something you need to chase and find. And so when I'm that wow feeling, then in your professional career, you need to find ways to, where did you get that wow? And if you're looking for a new role, is okay, where can I find a role that will give me more wow? So if your wow is being on stage presenting stuff,
Wow. Yeah. You made me think finding things. That's what it was, to
yeah,
find something that was like, there it is. But I could probably do that with music. Find the melody, right? That's a good
yeah.
one.
But is that the finding or the searching that you like?
Um, that's a good question. How do I answer that for my audience? How would we figure that out? What
I
do
don't
you
know.
ask yourself?
Yeah. I mean, do you feel pleasure in the research, or do you feel pleasure into?
Actually, yes, in the research for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because honestly, if I had more time, I'd probably be writing all the time. Like if I would literally be doing just research all the time if I had the choice.
Yeah.
So would that be finding?
That is searching, I think. I think finding is really that you, like the eureka moment, like, oh yeah, I found it. I know
Damn
it.
it. Oh, now I'm going to go deeper into that on my own off later. I'm going to be like, what is this about psychology behind searching? I'm going to be off on that later. Like, so moving into psychology and human nature, good transition. Why do you think people often choose immediate gratification over long-term value?
I think we're brain wired for that.
Ooh, oh no. That means we have to be cognizant of our choices.
Yeah.
That's
I think
that's
we're
hard.
really, you know, the kick you get, the sugar rush, or,
Ooh,
um, I was just listening to the audiobook,
caffeine.
caffeine, Atomic Habits talks about it, by James Clear. It
Speaking
talks,
of,
yeah,
before you go into that one, the other one you're talking about, Covey, is his name? Seven
yeah,
Habits of Highly. Okay, let me go into
hi,
that real quick.
yeah,
Number 1, be proactive. 2, begin with the end in mind.
mm-hmm,
3, put things first. 4, think win-win.
mm-hmm.
5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. 6, synergize. And then 7, sharpen the saw. Do
Yeah,
you have anything to say about that?
that framework's amazing.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I
Never
mean,
heard that.
yeah, I mean, really take a look, check out the audiobook, or there's also they have the podcast run by his son now, because Covey's dead now, 10 years, I think. But are
And
really
still relevant.
super relevant, because it gives you a lot of cool framework to your circle of power, your circle of influence, for example.
Ooh, do you draw these things out in real life?
Yeah, sometimes I do.
Ooh, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, because
Atomic Habits after this. I just don't want to
and
make you
atomic,
forget.
yeah, and atomic habits after that. I think everyone's talking about atomic habits, how to,
Yeah, I've heard this is a couple times I've had this reference for sure.
yeah, I mean, I think it's everyone's talking about it. It's really worthwhile reading it. I did the audiobook last week, um, where he says that you need to think in terms of systems and not in terms of actions if you want to do something. And the system would be that, let's say you want to sport every day after work. When you come home, then the first step is, when you come home, is to put your sport shoes. If you come home, you put your sport shoes on, that's a sign for your body that, hey, I'm going to go and sport. And then your body is prepared for that, and then you go and running or whatever it is.
Wow.
But you need
Wow.
to, you build those tiny
Dude,
habits and tiny
it's so
things.
good. It's so
Yeah.
good because it's one of those things of being self-aware. And that's one of
Yeah.
the ways that I invent stuff, where it's like you're just like looking deeper into something, or you're trying to understand it a little bit more. But that's probably somebody like putting their shoes on and realizing they get a feeling from it every time. Like I
Yeah.
have intent suddenly. I have intent when I put these on.
Yeah.
So being cognizant of the feeling you get when you do something.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's all those habits that you have, like you wake up, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, all those things now automatic for you. Can you add some more to your way of working? So when you get to your desk and you want to start working, what do you want to start with? Can you prepare already a desk in a way that there's now Facebook opened up on your computer, but that your email or whatever thing you want to do, or maybe you want to be writing, so your computer is completely switched off, and when you get to your desk, there's only your book where you can write in. That's thinking about what you want to do and how do you build a system around it to make it work for you.
The other quote from Atomic Habits here I got is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That one's such a slap in the face.
Yeah, it is. It is. It hurts.
Because like some CEOs, like I have to fix everything. It's the worst.
And that's true. If your system is not well set up,
Oof, music industry.
Yeah, I mean, you can wish whatever you want to do as a goal, personal goal, a business goal. You'll fail because you fall back into the system you have in place.
And do you feel like no matter how big you are, if your system is flawed, that it'll get exposed eventually?
Yep.
Ooh. That's a bombshell quote. I wish I had a cue button to make some sounds on here.
Yeah.
There you go. What is
the
the
break
big
studio? You need all those buttons,
You're like childhood memories coming out. What is the biggest misconception about human motivation in the sales industry?
That it's about money.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess people have deeper needs, that they're
Yeah.
giving you money to satisfy this deeper fulfillment. That's where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, if you work with salespeople and you want to, usually a salesperson is often paid 50% fixed, 50% commission-based. You give them a target, and if they reach a target, they get the other 50% of their on-target earnings. So that's quite significant. And I've seen many instances where management is really pushing around those bonuses and commissions and what they call spiffs, which is kind of accelerators. Hey, if you sign 3 clients before the end of the week, it's $2,000 or whatever. Those things can work, but they're an external motivators that's on the outside layer, and it works with probably all the reps, but it will not motivate them internally. But what I'm seeing actually is most of the sales reps I've been working with are very customer centric. They really care about their customers. They really want the best for them. And
what would you say? No, I mean, finish your thought. I don't want to interrupt you, but
so it's, if you just hire salespeople and tell them, hey, go and sell this crap and whatever the price, and you'll be well paid. I think the huge majority of sales professional will not feel comfortable selling crap if they know it's crap. So, because they really want to, they're humans, and I believe that all humans are good. You might have some people that are bad, but I think most people are decent and they want to do well. And I think salespeople I've been working with, most of them refusing to do things that do not feel good and that would be bad for their customer.
So I guess my thought was, how does that play on the company? Like long term, is this just a retention issue? Because you're saying it doesn't fulfill them, just giving them a little perk. Is that what's the systemic issue here?
The systemic issue is that if you purely try to motivate people on money, they will be living for money.
Wow. And if that is ironic. I'm motivating you with what you're going to leave with. Like, The
let's
same
say,
reason you're going to leave is my incentive for you.
yeah, I mean, if I'm telling you, hey, Joe, you do that for me, I'll give you $100. And like, okay,
Wow.
clean the toilet every day, I'll give you $100. But the neighbor comes along and says, can you clean my toilet for $150? What are you going to do?
What you're saying to me, what it sounds like you're saying is if you make it transactional, then that's how it's always going to be, right? If you
Yeah.
treat them transactional.
And if
Wow.
you and if you look at a couple of interesting organizations like Salesforce.com, for example, they have built a whole culture that they call Ohana, which is Hawaii-based culture, where the employees are a family. Okay, so are my colleagues' family? Not sure. Some of them are good friends, but the idea is really good because you have a sense of belonging that goes beyond the financial paycheck that comes at the end of the month. And I think that's what you want to do for everyone, but you need, of course, to act accordingly and don't be a dick.
You made me think, I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Vee.
Yeah.
So are you predicting the future is just more caring? How do you think these companies are going to shift? If people aren't buying their products, if they're going to stay expensive and people can't afford it, what are they going to do? Like become your best friend?
Yeah, but I think we get back to the point of, are we getting best friends because I have some benefits out of, you want to buy a credit card? So,
That is crazy, though. If you think of
yeah,
these companies getting that desperate, like they just really try to schmooze customers and it becomes inauthentic. I can see it though, like
yeah,
because they have to spend the money anyway. So now they're
yeah,
just making excuses to advertise.
yeah. But yeah, I think in many cases, the powerful companies provide free services where we are the product, uh, like Facebook, X, and so on. So
We'll just take the data.
it's okay. Just use the thing. Use Gmail. We'll just use the data and we'll provide and click on some ads and we're gonna be happy. I think they built a good business model where the product is good and you're used to it, so you'll use it, and they'll make money in the process. Um, you get value because you have a product that works very well. So yeah, it's back to the value exchange, I guess.
I just saw that YouTube had like an AI integration now for searching. Like it's giving you recommendations, AI recommendations based on what it thinks you should make for content.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's the first stage. The next stage will be YouTube will make the content themselves.
Well, what I also think is next year for sure, everything's going to be AI videos. Like right now, it's a couple seconds that it looks good,
Yeah.
movements. But next year, we're going to have whole movies for sure in AI.
Yeah. And it touches everything. So you have the very interesting company called OneMind. Um, and what they do is they are building superhumans. And yeah,
Explain what?
yeah, so
What?
it's okay. They don't fly, but
They're just super strong.
um, their goal is to provide digital sales reps. And the demos that I saw were pretty good. So in my industry, in technology, we usually have sales teams where you have an account executive, which is the salesperson. You have a solution engineer, solution consultant, which is more a technical person that will explain how demo the product and show this is how it's going to integrate with your systems and so on. What OneMind does is that it can create a sales rep and a solution engineer. And so as a customer, you can have actually interaction with those two people that will have their presentation deck, that will be able to give the demos.
And they'll probably know what you like in terms of physical attraction. So it'll be a super hot bot you're talking to.
Could be. So far, they don't look too bad, but I guess it will be better. But what's really interesting is that when you are dealing with people, you forget things. You know, we have conversation. We'll probably remember we had a good time, but will we remember the entire conversation?
The
Probably
bot
not.
will.
Yeah, the bot will, and so the bot can, everything you say will be held against you by the superhuman. So
Whoa.
if you told to the bot as a client, you told them, well, my budget is 100K, and actually you meant 80K, you meant 200K, it can tell you like, you remember on that specific day you mentioned it was 100K, and let me give you the exact sentence. So
Wow. The timestamp.
yeah, timestamp and everything. So um,
Holding you accountable.
yeah, holding you accountable, but it means that we are really AI is. I think it's taking some very interesting spots. When I saw that, I was like, oh, we were in the belief that, yeah, online shopping is something, but really B2B complex sales will not be touched by AI. Well, it might. So
Do
I'm
you
really interested.
have do you have any thoughts on Apple being so behind with artificial intelligence?
I think they've always been behind on everything. Um,
Interesting.
I mean, the iPod, they ran behind the MP3 players from, I forgot the name now. I had one of those. But back then, they were running behind. They were running behind on smartphones and everything. But
I remember
as
the
soon,
Zune.
yeah, not the Zune, yeah. The Zune, it was the other one in River. No, it was, I forgot how it was called. But yeah, back then, they were running behind smartphones. Yeah, the HP Compaq had also their own version of a PDA, was called back then. So they were running behind, but at the time they start to invest, they can really eat the market. So um, I never bet against Apple because I know that whenever they decide to go into a market, they can take a large chunk of it. At the same time, their play into AI will be specific to their ecosystem. So I don't see them going
Yeah.
beyond the MacBook and the
Well,
iPhones.
I think recently they announced the home monitoring kind of tablet where it's probably going
Yeah.
to control everything. But I don't know if you remember, they canceled the AI car that they were making.
Did they cancel it?
Yeah, canceled a
Really?
10-year project, $1 billion a year, canceled.
Yeah. I mean,
Would love to see that prototype. Just saying.
Tim Cook, if you're listening, give Joe a call.
How does understanding human nature improve leadership and decision making?
If you, yeah, and if you don't understand
What
human
drives
nature,
people and
yeah, what drives
motivates them?
people, motivates them, you cannot work with them and guide them and work with them towards a specific goal.
Do you think
That
it's like an unspoken thing though? Like you kind of just figure out what motivates people. You don't really talk about it.
I think we tend to believe that we know what motivates people.
Ooh,
No,
that's a super
I,
good point. I've heard so many stories of people like doing things for people that didn't appreciate it because it
yeah,
wasn't what motivated them, you know?
yeah, and we believe that, and we always make that mistake. We believe that, hey, she's gonna love it, he's gonna love it, and
Blank
yeah.
reaction. Didn't ask for it. Cool.
I broke my neck to prepare that present for you.
That is
Uh,
real.
but it's real. Yeah, I think we all felt that pain. Yeah. So yeah. So we need to, yeah, get it back to value. Value lies in the eyes of the beholder. Um, and as we know people, we get probably a better feel. But if I truly believe that if it comes from a place of goodness, and I mean, I'm sending you flowers while you're allergic to flowers. After the initial, what the fuck are you doing? You'll say, okay, well, the intention was good. So, I think intention matters.
It reminded me of the video of girls being like, when she's into you, it's like, oh my God, he sent flowers. But if she's not into you, it's like, oh my God, he sent flowers, like creeped out, same exact.
Been
That's
there.
funny. Can businesses succeed without appealing to emotions? Why or why not?
I don't think, my gut feeling would be that they can't, because we are emotional beings that rationalize afterwards.
So even if you're saving time and it's an automated thing, you don't even think about, you think you still value it at like a deep level or something?
Yeah. So one of the framework that I use when working with our teams is looking at the 40 levels of value. And there's an analyst from an article on HBR, Harvard Business Review, showing actually the 40 levels of value, 40 levels of value. And they've put that into a Maslow pyramid. It's an interesting one because, the Maslow pyramid, at the bottom, you get your needs. And then as you go higher, those needs are less important physically, but mentally, they become more important. So at the bottom, you have food and shelter, and at the bottom, you have self-realization. And they did the same with value. And so at the bottom, you have quality, ROI, payback.
You just made me think you can make this with AI so easily. Make me a chart, blah, blah, blah. What?
But those guys really did very deep research into all those areas. What's interesting is that as you get higher into that value pyramid, at the top, you have self-realization as well. So Apple is a great example. We just talked about them. The quality is good, but the price is very expensive. But the top of the pyramid is that you say, well, I'm part of the Apple ecosystem. I'm one of the cool guy with an iPhone. I'm not running around with a cheap Samsung, whatever, or Chinese.
It sounds funny to hear it, but you're probably right. Like you don't say that, but you're probably right. Like we feel like that.
Yeah, so deep into us. And so when you're positioning the value, you need to take that into consideration. Otherwise, you're just selling to the lower level, which is the, I would say, the functional level, but you want to sell at the emotional level, and the emotional is really, I'm part of that community. And I mentioned Salesforce earlier. They have this community of customers where you can follow free training and so on. And if you're part of that community, it's something special. And they manage to create that sensation, that feeling of, hey, I'm part of that cool community. And that's why they choose Salesforce. It's not because it's a good product. There are probably better products on the market. And every day you have new products that are probably better. But they don't have all of that extra thing around it, that community, that belonging that we all long for at a deep human level.
You said community and belonging for an iPhone. That's wild. I mean, because we hear that with music. So I'm tying this into musicians. Like you got to build your community, or you have an invention. You got to build the proof of concept, prove the market.
Yeah.
It's interesting no matter what, but we have an iPhone, and I don't think any of us think about it as like we're part of a community because it's so big and it's just ingrained in our everyday lives. Everyone has one. So it's not even a thought.
And if you give a kid an Android phone, he will look weird at you. It's like, oh, don't I get an iPhone? So
give me a tablet. Yeah, you're right. It's interesting. Kids are raised on tablets now. It's a whole generation of tablet babies.
Yeah. we try to give them books, but it's a struggle.
They're reading, I swear they're reading. How do you approach building trust in a world where skepticism is growing? Transparency. Say it. Say it. Transparency.
Hint. Can I call a friend? Yeah, I think it's transparency is one, but I think it's curiosity and being interested in other people,
Oh,
genuine interest into people. I think it goes, if I'm interested in you as a human, and try to learn from you, you get that connection. It builds trust amongst us.
wow. I just had an epiphany moment, a little heart drop, because that's the whole point of the community police class I'm in right now. Literally to dispel the stigmas between community and the police because of how they feel about each other, you know?
Yeah,
But it's so true though, because once you get in and you see what it's like, the inner workings, and you dispel what you thought it was, it's like, oh, dude, they're normal people, and you don't even realize what they're going through. It's so much worse than you can imagine.
yeah,
But yeah, just I think it's the humanity aspect, right? Can you empathize with what I go through? Now you
yeah,
understand me as a human, right?
yeah. Don't look at the uniform, but try to look at the person wearing the uniform, and don't look at the kid, but look at who the kid is. In France, they did some great work back in the early 2000s around that, where they were really working on um, having police being part of the neighborhoods, and they were playing football together. They were
It's
they got to know each other very well,
pretty
and
cool.
it's very cool. And I mean, police are not police officers are not kids from rich people. Usually, they're also coming from those neighborhoods.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they're,
That's a super good point.
they're probably coming from the same area, and we tend to be afraid of other people because they wear a uniform or something else. But at the end, we are all, yeah, we're all human.
Even then, if you're a rich person trying to be a cop, wouldn't you commend them even more? Like, hey, you have no reason to be doing this. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you must have a sense of injustice in the world.
Yeah,
You would
yeah,
assume.
yeah, and you want to do good.
Wow.
And I think, yeah,
Moving on to the value-based selling and leadership. What's the biggest mistake companies make when transitioning to value-based selling?
thinking that it's just building an ROI
So
for your product. Like,
numbers,
hey,
just numbers.
yeah, just numbers. Come on, you're gonna make millions. Just buy my product now. You're gonna make millions. It's it's probably the biggest mistakes they make because they think it's number, but it's actually, and that's why I speak about value coach. It's about really coaching and mapping the value and understanding what it is, and then build a story around it, and have that
Wow.
conversation together.
This comes back to people always say that you're buying into the owner, right? You're buying into the founder of the company, because if you don't believe I can build what I'm telling you, you're not going to give me
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
If you don't even think I'm knowledgeable on what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Super good point. Makes me think of Sam Altman. Or even worse, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Oh, come on.
Because I mean, I remember hearing those stories that he was just like sleeping in his office trying to like pretend like he was working all night, and when investors would come in to play off like he's the hardworking. That's
That guy
hilarious.
was good. That guy was good.
Well, I think that also proves influencer marketing, right? Like if you have to
Yeah,
sell a brand, if you have to sell a person,
yeah.
wow, still relevant today. Like when it comes to marketing a product, would you say?
I think so. I think it's probably even more so. So, how do you how do you diversify your product in an AI world where I can build a digital product within a day using AI and hiring some guys in the Philippines or in India that can help make the code nice and work.
So true.
It,
Yeah,
it
it's true.
and it
It's
and
really
it's get back
efficient.
to you. Yeah.
Not bad, dude. Do
Yeah.
you think value-based selling is sustainable in a hyper-competitive, profit-driven world?
It's critical to be successful in such a world.
Oh, snap.
So
That's why we see companies are being inflated with cash even more so, right? Like
yeah,
hyper-inflated.
yeah. I mean, and if you're not able to really build a good value case for your product, you'll be displaced by someone else. So you need to be able to map the value and make it clear for the customer, because the customer, what you need to do is especially in complex sales, it's not one person deciding. It's a committee. They need to go through hoops and have 10 people being convinced at the CFO. And so to align all those people, you need to be able to understand what different values drive them, those different people, and build a case that will help to defend that across the entire group of constituents. And so that's where you need to build a strong case for what you try to achieve together with the client. And you cannot do that if you just like, hey, my product is cool. It's green and everybody loves green.
I feel you. Needs to be a reason.
Yeah.
What is the most surprising lesson you've learned leading teams across diverse industries?
That even though we are all different, we are all humans, and we're all the same at the end of the day. That if you treat people well and you try to look at them completely as all human, then with a family, with friends, with a life.
Kind of curious why that surprised you, or did you feel like you were treating them differently before that? Like before you had that realization?
Not really, but I was like, oh yeah, it's Asia, the culture will be very different. During the US, so the culture will be different. You try to put people into boxes. Well, yeah, there are of course, some cultural differences here and there in how you communicate with people, but at a core level, they're pretty much the same.
What does it mean to you to be more than rich?
To be more than rich? To be happy. Rich is it's money. You don't take your money to the grave. So you only leave it to your kids to fight themselves, and then you can watch a Succession or whatever show on TV to see how it looks like. So I think being rich is having a life filled with great people and having the impression that you had a good quality, good relationship with people, and that they care about you and that you care about them. I think that's what rich means.
Anything you want to promote?
A couple of billions on the bank account.
Anything you want to promote? Website to find you, how to hire you, anything?
You can just check value, the website value-coach.com. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Sultan Semlali. Just feel free to reach out. I'm creating content around value-based selling, and I'm also looking at creating material around best sales practices from big corporates for small entrepreneurs, because large corporations train their people well, and we learn a lot of things. And I think that being the kid of entrepreneurs, I think that some of those techniques and some of those learning could be useful for everyone.
Got it. Appreciate you being here, and hopefully I'll get you back on soon. So maybe in a few months we'll connect again. Part 2.
I'd love to. Thanks a lot,
Awesome.
Joe.
Hey,
Really
appreciate it, Sultan. Let's be in touch.
Take care.